So, in some ways, the review that I'm going to be doing today is a combination of this game of Shadow of the Colossus and this game, Shadow of the Colossus. This is the PS4 remake, and it's only really a graphical and like maybe frame rate and stuff kind of update to the game. And they made like a few fixes that this game didn't have, so I'll be like noting those as we go along. But I thought it'd be cool if I did a review of this game, but not future me, past me. So you're beginning the retro review of this game from past me, and then also we can compare it to how I think of the game now. So, and that'll also be the review from now. So like my written reviews for each of these games, I'm just gonna kind of read them and maybe comment on them along the way, and maybe make some like brief mentions of stuff and that kind of stuff and interject. But so we're gonna review both games, but I'm not gonna be reviewing this game. Past me is gonna be reviewing it in the future. Like, what is that? Like we're time traveling here or something. So let's get to it. All right. I gotta, and I'm not gonna be able to hold the games up. Maybe I can hold them up like when I'm talking about them or something, because I gotta switch between reviews here. So let's I mean, so I guess I'll get my general thoughts on the I guess the remake out of the way first. Like it's pretty good. It's like the definitive edition compared to this one because like I said, there's a few like bug fixes and stuff. Not bugs really, but like more just like when you're climbing on some of the colossi and stuff, some of the climbing mechanics are weird in this one. They still have a few of them in this one, but it was less noticeable in this one because they fixed a lot of them, except for like the final boss. But we'll get there. So in this one, it was a little bit more frustrating. This one, not as much. So yeah, this is kind of the definitive version if you can get it on PS4 there. But this one also comes with Eco, so that's good. So they're both pretty cheap. I would say get both, but I mean if you want to just play Shadow of the Colossus, get this one, I guess. But I also recommended Eco last time, so you know, I don't know, get them both, I guess. It's worth owning. Hey, this one has 3D. You can use it with Sony 3D TVs, like I have over there. Never used it, but it'd be an interesting experience. It's actually kind of part of the reason why I wanted that, because I wanted to play this again in 3D. But whatever. We'll get back to that. Anyway, maybe I'll do a review of that in the future. 3D Shadow of the Colossus. Anyway, so yeah, aesthetically, this version is a lot better. It Yeah, it looks nicer. Not a lot better. I mean, I feel like this one still looks pretty good, but like the jump in quality is like kind of not that. It's not as grand as I thought it was kind of be. Like I don't know. It was noticeable, but like it didn't like blow me away or anything. I think the game it looks like a PS2 game that then looked like a PS3 game that they kind of fixed up to look more like a PS4 game, if that makes sense, because that's what happened. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is just a really good looking PS2 game, if you want to put it that way. But to be fair, it does look pretty good, but it looks more like a really good looking PS3 game, I think, anyway. But, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, aesthetically, it looks pretty good. I mean, I don't think they really made any changes to like the music or anything, as far as I noticed. So just some little light mechanic fixes that really helped out this version to be a little bit more enjoyable on some of the colossi, and we'll see that as I get into the review. That yeah, I wasn't so high on some of the colossi in this game because of the changes that they made. It helped out a lot. So let's get to that then. Let's start with the first one. So we'll go past me, future me kind of thing. So past me gave you guys a little brief description thing here. The following review of Shadow of the Colossus, the game regarded as nearly perfect by most critics and is seen as a masterpiece by many gamers. Um, it released in 2005 for PS2, but notably, I'm playing the HD remake for the PS3 bundle with Eco. The format is simply the premise of the game. There's 16 of these colossi, so I'm going to be looking at each of them in depth and written directly after for every last boss. So this is analytical and unfiltered analysis and feelings on each boss. All right, so here we go. So Colossi number one. Number one, I said originally was challenging. Does a decent job of showing the player the ropes while being tough. Very furry. Very furry. You furries out there, this guy's very furry. It's easily understood and climbed once you get where to go. Okay, so like once you understand where to go. Stamina bar is piss poor at this point. So if you're not fast or you can't grapple, the awkward motion and holding grab and jump and then not jumping but at a certain point's having to then it's not so bad. Okay, good starter. So yeah, so you can already see, even by the first Colossi, I had some problems with the control of like climbing the Colossi. The fur sections were a little bit awkward to handle in the original PS3 remake there. So, all right, so let's talk about. We'll jump over to the PS4 one. Okay. So, and then, the first one is just, like, the one that's, like, I don't even know how to describe it. He's just a guy, basically, and you climb up his back. It's pretty easy. There's only, like, one or two, like, stab points or whatever. I think there's only the one on his head. It kind of sets up everything, so that's, I just wanted to give a brief description there. Usually I do give a brief description in the PS4 remake version, but... Okay, so Colossi number one on the PS4 here. Pretty easy overall, and took 2 hits. Only 2 hits, so I feel like having played this before helps for sure. I was also playing in easy mode, so I don't know. Is this easy mode? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, the story has been set up. Kill the Colossi and get the girl back, so that's good. The path there was a good learning opportunity to reacquaint myself with the controls. They feel less slippery so far, and everything is pretty intuitive. The first moment you see the beast and how massive and tall it is compared to you is pretty epic. For some reason, I didn't remember him being that tall. The music was decent here at establishing the atmosphere. I like how you have to use the bow to damage him the first time, so that establishes that that's a thing in this game. Pretty standard boss, though, overall. Good introduction, if not a little too easy. So you can already see that I thought he was kind of hard in this one. He was kind of easy in this one. So I was playing easy mode in this one. I don't even know if there was an easy mode in this one, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they kind of fixed a few things to make it better. So, there you go. Alright, so let's jump back over to the PS3 version. We got Colossi number 2, which is... let's see. So, well, okay. Let me jump. Sorry. All right. I still gotta get this down. So, okay. So this is the one that's like in the little first desert area, kind of next to the water, and you fight him, and he's the after this I give a description of like what each of them is, but this is like I don't even know what you're gonna call it, but he like runs around and you have to like shoot his under part under his feet or whatever to get him to fall over. So that's this guy. So okay. So let's go to the PS3 version. We got, all right, the best. Slow enough to further ease players in. Good tense music when on the ground. An epic build-up when you approach the stab point. The theme near the stab point felt epic. Stabbing is seen clearly, very visceral, and you feel it in the wind-up, and it really leaves an impact when the player makes a hit. Enough flat points on the back to not be annoying. 2 stab points introducing multiple locations. Shooting the underside of the feet was cool. Really, really great. Done with perfection. Yeah, this is one of my favorite Colossi, for sure. So let's go jump back over to the other one. Oh, and on the PS4 remake version, I did give grading scales. On the last one, it was a 7 out of 10 Colossi. So Colossi number 2, I like how the trek to this one takes you in the opposite direction from the first one, because the first one is like a straight ahead on a linear path, but the second one takes you towards a larger area, setting up the open world design of the game. It's not really open world, but the big world design of the game. Um, as you see more open area in that direction that you're headed. I like the branching path right before the boss, which gives you the option to go explore the world or go down to the boss. There's not much to see at this point, but it's nice that the game gives you eases up on the restrictions and more and more as time goes on. The boss itself is the mammoth. That's what. Okay, so it's like a mammoth. That's what I'd call it. A sort of giant camel that you have to hit with the bow on its underfoot, and then climb to find the weak spot. Um, the head has a weak spot, but it's a nice subversion that the back area has another weak point to imply for further weak spots could be anywhere. It's more challenging. It's more challenging than the last, only slightly, but I like the increase in moderation. The music is the highlight, whereas the last Colossi was good music to start. The desperate sort of high action theme plays while you're on the ground, so it's a parallel to the last in a lot of ways. Then as you climb, the main and more epic and triumphant theme sweeps the player with a sense of higher action and accomplishment. There's a genuine satisfaction when the music makes such a grand change to coincide with the gameplay. Overall, this was a pretty good boss. I liked it more than the first. I remember it being a good one that sold me on the game when I was first playing it, mostly due to the music probably, but good nonetheless. 9 out of 10. So yeah, this is like one of my favorite Colossi, just because I think it's the theme for sure. That's part of the big draws when you finally flip him over, or like you can get onto him or however that works. I think he just falls down, right? And then you like jump onto him or whatever. But once you get up there, it starts playing the do 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 do. It's like it's really epic, and that's the best theme in the game. So I mean, I don't think that's a hot take. So yeah, anyway, so there you go. Yeah, so that's pretty much why that one's awesome, is because it's just a really good one overall. So all right. So number 3 is I labeled him on my other one the Gravekeeper Camel, right? Isn't that this one? Or is that no, I'm sorry, that's number 4. Number 3 is the Knight. See, I don't have them labeled on the fucking PS3 one. That's why it's so hard to. Okay, I need to. All right, here's what we're gonna do. So yeah, no, okay, I was reading the wrong one. So yeah, this one's the Knight, and let's go back to the PS3. So the Knight is okay. Interesting concept and a fun enough boss once you figure out the crux of hitting the pad, climbing his hammer. I called it a hammer. It's a knife. It's like a giant sword or something. It's not a hammer. How is it a hammer? I guess because he hit the pad. That's why I thought it was a hammer. I don't know. Anyway, has to be whatever. It is easy to understand. It's obvious and precise as to where you need to jump. The stab points are clear. Falling off is not a big deal. It's only slightly annoying. This boss challenges the conventions of being able to jump directly and immediately onto the enemy, and it's a bit of trial and error to figure it out. Overall, a fun boss. Okay. So yeah, this is the Knight where you have to climb up his hammer or whatever. This is yeah, he's on the front actually. That's him right there. Oh, I was like, yeah, I think it's the one on the front. So yeah, he's on the front there. So okay, Colossi number 3, the Knight. Getting to this one is an open area that funnels into a set of hallways between mountains. There's a taste of emptiness to the open world, but hallways answer why exploring later might benefit you. The answer is lizards, which boost stamina. And I don't think these early lizards boost stamina, as far as I remember. It's only the white-tailed lizards, but at the time I guess I thought that these ones boosted stamina too. But you like rarely see these in the rest of the game. I don't know. Somebody tell me, does the black-tailed lizards, those boost stamina, or are those just like useless? Because you only see them like really in that hallway there a few other times, but I don't know. I don't think they do anything. But anyway, the concept is still this is why you want to explore the world, because these lizards or whatever, to find them to boost your stamina. So let me see. Boost stamina. These hallways have a few to introduce this concept to the player. The boss itself is pretty good. Once you figure out his sword pillar needs to hit the metal plate on the ground, things get a lot more clear. You can climb by running up his sword before you can't get all the way to the top as you're blocked by an armor piece in the middle. This boss sets up that enemies have more requirements than simply climbing them. There's the typical point at the very top of its head, but the chest one on the front is another good setup to show that it's not always entirely obvious where it will be, where the stab points will be. I liked how the armor acted as more obstacles to figure out how to jump around, to whereas the first two were more basic in this regard. 8 out of 10. So yeah, pretty good boss overall. It's a little frustrating if you don't really realize that he's supposed to hit the armor plate, and that's kind of what the whole thing is about. You just try to climb, because that's what I tried to do, kind of like just try to climb up his sword this time anyway. I don't remember what I did before, but I tried to climb up his sword, and they let you do that, and you can only get to a certain point um, before you're just kind of stuck. So it's like, oh, what the fuck do I do, right? Well, you have to figure out to hit the plate, have him hit the plate, because then the piece of armor that's blocking your way gets taken off, which is pretty cool. That's a good concept. So, all right, so number 4 is the Gravekeeper's Camel. This is the one where the little things dangle down, and you have to like jump and then get up to there. Yeah. So, let us talk about the PS3 version. That's number 4. Okay. The hiding mechanic is neat, clear as day that the dangling hair was the jumping point, not too difficult to grasp once you understand this concept. Falling is a small inconvenience, but it's really not that bad. Kills the concept of just jumping, or kills the concept of just climbing the enemy and starts the enemy comes to you trend. There's waiting, it's fun, but I got impatient. Still a great boss, and the execution is fine. So yeah, I mean, decent boss. This is what PS3 me was saying past me. All right, Colossi number 4, the Gravekeeper's Camel, as I've dubbed it. I don't know what all the official names are. I did hear them. I watched like that Pop Fiction video again after beating that. Or let's go to that. After beating it, so like they did have the official names, but like half of them are just like Giant D or something. It's like, so nah. I like my names better. This one is easy to trek to. More hallways and lizards. Got a fruit too, which raises health. A single fruit, I guess. There should have probably been more fruits on that tree, but I guess I just got one. So, maybe I meant I got fruit too, which raises health, but there's A in there. I don't know. Sentence structure. Anyway, the setup is an underground section to hide, and the giant camel has long dreadlocks, so you climb those and climb those, and to grab you need to hide down until it bends. I remember that from before, so it was a lot easier to figure out. The jumping onto the dreadlocks was the hard part. The first few times it just made me jump off, and I figured out the control after that. It was pretty painless. After that it was pretty painless. So there's a head point, which is the bulk of the damage, and the back point slightly lower, so it's not too bad to figure out if you were paying attention to the pattern so far. The music was standard fare. The valley in which you fight him is kind of cool too. I like the gimmick overall, and it wasn't that frustrating. 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, so this is a pretty standard Colossi boss. I actually like this one. Apparently a lot of people don't like that one, so I don't know. I thought it was pretty good though. Pretty decent overall. Pretty standard. Nothing too like ridiculous about him or anything. I mean, he's just a nice standard boss. Okay. So okay. Oh, shit. I keep switching back before I like look at the description. So number 5 is okay. This is the bird over the water. So this is the one where the bird like swoops down at you and you have to like get on top of it and stuff. And it's over water. So water ones are always not so great. The swimming controls in this game, not the controls really themselves, but like just the swimming mechanic. It's just slow, and there's not really any way to speed it up like Mario or something. So it's just kind of It's like whatever. So anyway, this boss is a pain in the ass. This is past me, by the way. Falling off is a tedious punishment, as swimming back is painfully slow, and it can take a long time to swim back to the platform, given you can randomly fall anywhere. The boss itself, I like luring it over and waiting for it to come to you can take forever, and on some levels it's annoyingly slow. When you're on the bird, though, the climbing is fine. The stab points are very evident. It was a nice touch to put them on the wings, as well as let you hang on to a skeletal structure when it's flapped. When it's flapped, I don't know. I think when it's flapping, I guess. Yeah, like when the bird is flapping its wings, when it's flapped. I guess flapped is a real word. Like he flapped his wings, but I don't know how this let me get away with that sentence structure. Anyway, it's a cool boss once you got into it, but the punishment is so severe for falling off, and sometimes there's really not a lot of stable ground to stand on for a bit of a stretch, which is a problem since there's not a lot of white lizards to this point, about 3 by my count. It's fun to explore the vast land in between these two. It opens up a lot of shrines, each of which has a lizard for stamina. I probably collected like 30 health fruits along the way, which is very helpful and satisfying to collect. The world itself begins showing its stunning beauty and scope at this point, and it looks amazing and impressive on this collection. So it's really taken by the graphics, apparently. And I got like 30 of those fruits. I remember this. I just kind of like stopped midway through the game and just went around to like all the trees that I could find and just like took all the fruits and got a bunch of white lizards and stuff. So I really embraced myself on this version in the world of Shadow of the Colossus. I really didn't do that too much on the remake because I wanted to get through it or whatever. But and I already kind of done that on this version. They're not super different. If anything, this is more like a remaster, and like they fixed some stuff, like I was saying. So, but but it's a better version, really, of the game. So, let's see what I think of Colossi number 5 now. Colossi number 5, Bird Over the Water. Getting to this one, I got very sidetracked. Wow, I got sidetracked on this too. I got sidetracked at this random waterfall area that's probably for a future boss, and then I figured out where I had to go. Okay, so this is funny because I got sidetracked at the waterfall where you actually have to fight the worst boss in the game, which we'll get to later, the boss where you have to control him on the water. And that's awful. And I thought that the bird over the water was at that spot, and I thought I remembered that, but that's not actually where he was. He was at a different water spot. So I spent like an hour or something just like sitting there trying to go, like, swimming onto the platforms. Oh, okay, this platform doesn't work. There's nothing that happens. So then I tried to, like, there's these platforms kind of near the waterfall. I tried to, like, jump on those. They didn't actually lead anywhere, and I died a bunch of times falling off the waterfall, and it's a big pain in the ass. I'm just stupid, though. I went the wrong way, basically. But the light kind of leads you that way, so, like, if you go the wrong way, it's like, well, okay, kind of thing, so. But I had to go a different direction. But alright, so Bird Over the Water. So I got sidetracked, got a ton of health fruit at this tree along the way, and got 2 white lizards. This boss is pretty cool. I like the gimmick of the 2 spots on the edges of the wings, and you have to wait for him to fly the right way to get each. Then there's one on the back, of course. The thing I hate is the swimming, as it's slow and tedious, and there's no way to alleviate it. Luckily, I didn't fall off or anything, unlike last time. Getting on him took a bit of effort, but I like that you kind of jump in when he's swooping at you. Being so high up on the flying beast is quite a unique change of pace, and the music captures the terror of the height as well. Overall, a good boss, 8.7 out of 10. Wow, I'm really high on this boss in this version. 8.7. That's a pretty high score. So, yeah, I think so. I think he's a pretty good boss. I mean, overall, compared to some of the ones coming up. So, and like the thing is, a lot of the bosses aren't like bad. They're just kind of like mediocre later on. They're just like, oh, okay, this one was all right, kind of thing. So, but we'll get there. There's like 2 really bad bosses, but we'll get there as well. So, yeah, so that's that one. So we got Colossi number 6. See, now I've started doing the thing where I have the names on each of them. The giant minotaur of the tower. So, okay, let me read this quick. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the one that's in the tower, and you have to, like, jump onto his beard and all that stuff. So, yeah, picture that for a second here. Let's jump back to PS3, John. Okay. Number 6. I can appreciate what they were going for here, but fuck this guy. The controls on him and the climbing on his beard to try to transition to his body are fucking terrible. If this was Uncharted, I would have a clear ability to make this jump, this foot jump, with complete accuracy and zero movement problems. But no, this is very unresponsive and does a shit job of allowing me to jump and make my climbing path clear. So yeah, if this was Uncharted, but not Uncharted 2, because that has some weird jumps like this as well. This leads to numerous times of me losing all my damn stamina and other times pulling it off perfectly. Also, you can't really move when an enemy is shaking, which is fine, but this is one that won't give me a damn chance. He shakes so much and it's ridiculous. On top of that, finding a spot to stand to regain stamina is a fucking nightmare due to the constant twitching. It's fucking tedious as shit to hide behind a pillar and then have to wait like 2 minutes for him to bend down. Did we not do this with Boss 4? That's all in capitals, by the way. I'm very angry at this point. There was done a hell of a lot better too. Also, this is notable as it's the next entry of the epic Shadow of the Colossus theme, the music from the better fight from 2. Yeah, so the music from 2. Also, this is from the second fight, so it feels cheaply implemented. There's no build up like in the second fight. Overall, it's unenjoyable in comparison to the others. It's pretty low point so far, where the flaws of the mechanics really start to shine through, which is a shame, as everything up to this point was fine for the most part. So, pretty low on this boss back in the day, but that was because of some of the stuff that I was talking about. Like, climbing up on this guy was really a challenge in the original version because it was the awkward control or whatever on the climbing. But they fixed a lot of that in this version, except for the final boss for some reason. But they fixed it a lot with this one, so I'm a lot higher, I think, on this boss in the remake because it wasn't as hard. So all right, so Colossi number 6, the giant minotaur of the tower. Getting to this boss is pretty straightforward. I like the part where you have to understand to climb the side of the mountain on the vines. I like the journey that leads to a desert, a new area, and he's in this giant tomb, that's very clearly some kind of landmark from the outside. The boss is kind of a repeat of the Gravekeeper's camel, but he's a minotaur, and you have to hide behind a pillar of a tower and climb his beard. The spots are pretty standard fare too. The music is notable as they have the grand sweeping theme again when you start to climb the beard, so that's cool. They definitely fixed the fur areas to be less annoying from the PS3 version, because I remember this pissing me off as I climbed the areas were pretty inconsistent. This version is far superior though, 8.3 out of 10. See, I didn't even fucking look at my old review, and I knew that this boss was super annoying in the PS3 version. So that's one reason you want to get this version, is that some of the climbing areas are kind of inconsistent as to where you can climb to and jump to and stuff, which gets really annoying, like I said, in the final boss, but we will get there. But anyway, so in this boss, it was also kind of highlighted in the PS3 version that was bad. But, in the PS4 version, they fixed a lot of that, and it's a lot better. Maybe just because I was playing on easy. Pro tip, maybe just play on easy, because it's better. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why it wasn't as hard. But if that's what they add for the harder difficulties, then that's a really shit harder difficulty thing. I think it was more that they just fixed a lot of the texture and stuff, so to make it a lot easier for you. So, yeah, that's one reason you get this one. So, okay, Colossi number 7. This is the underwater eel one. Let me see. Let's go back to PS3, John. This boss is a good version of a water boss for this game. The last boss that flew over the water had too steep of a punishment as the player fell, but would have to arduously swim back to the platform and wait. Here, it's a much shorter wait, and the only time wasted is actually spent on the player dodging the electric spikes on its back, and it emerges and gives them time to line up for the tail when it emerges. I think I used emerge. Yeah, emerges twice in that sentence. But anyway, uh, while the points holding, while the point, while the points holding on its head, holding on as it bobs through the water, line up. Are wasting. So the points, as it's bobbing through the water, are wasting players' times. Players' time, huh? I don't know what I mean by that. It's no different than the constant shaking. In fact, that it keeps you on your toes and not constantly progression, which is a unique emulation of the climbing mechanic. Oh, okay. So the boss kind of goes back underwater every now and again. So it's kind of my point is it's kind of wasting your time to like have to keep like jumping back onto it or whatever. But if you're good, you don't have to do that because you just kind of hold on to it. It's not like the sand boss later. So I guess I just wasn't very good or something. I don't know. I mean, that's story of my life, right? I'm just not very good at this fucking Shadow of the Colossus boss. It was a very hard experience the first time. Give me some credit here. This creature is very long and actually has 4 stab points, one next to each of the spikes. Uh, that hits that when hit knocks out the electricity, which would harm you when it dips through the water, and is a good reward for the progressive accomplishment. So I think that was my problem before, is that like I kept getting hit by these electric spikes when it was going underwater, and I didn't realize that the stab points would knock out the spikes. Maybe I think that was kind of what the problem was before. The stabbing itself gets tricky as if you don't time it properly. Thanks to the dodging, don't time properly thanks to the dodging, but not annoyingly. So, and balancing that with your attempts to get back on if you enough haven't gotten enough time so you don't get shocked is tricky as well. Occasionally, the creature stayed under longer and deeper than the normal, at which point I was forced to retreat to the surface to start again. Yeah, this is like mid boss fight. You know, each of these guys kind of has like not all of them, but like some of the more annoying ones have this moment where you kind of arbitrarily get knocked off the creature and then you have to wait for it to come back, and it's like this is just padding out the gameplay and that kind of thing. You know, it's like it's kind of dumb, really, but I mean, I don't know, it's a video gamey thing. Like it gets more egregious later. Right now, it's kind of fine, but you know, like we'll see. I say it right here. Okay, so retreat to the surface. Keeping all the spikes dead, of course. So all the spikes remain dead. It's padding, but it's harmlessly executed here, and I didn't mind. See, so okay, even back then I didn't mind. Your stamina and air meter work as one and the same, though. So if it's deep enough, you could theoretically be killed once it runs out, as it starts to deplete your health. Overall, I didn't know that it starts to deplete your health afterwards, so it's like Metal Gear Solid rules. But okay. Overall, the challenge was fair. The twist on the mechanics in the water was nice. This boss was properly done for a water boss. So, you know, I was moderately high on it back then. I liked it well enough, you know. All right, so Colossus number 7, the underwater electric eel. This boss was all right. The gimmick of it keeping going underwater is a little annoying because it leads to swimming and it deep dives mid-fight, but other than that, it's handled okay. The multiple stab points also stop the electric horn is cool, especially having to realize that you have to take out the third one to get to the final stab point. So if you don't take out the one near its head, you actually cannot get to the final stab point, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So a fully aquatic boss is also a nice contrast to the land and sky beasts so far. Overall, a decent boss, 7.3 out of 10. And even more so, I think now, after having played the whole game, sorry, I was holding that one. Even more so now, after having played the whole game, I kind of think that this one is cool and it kind of stands out a little bit more as like a pretty good boss, you know? I kind of like it overall. I like the concept of like holding on to it, killing all the electric spikes when it's up. Like the swimming kind of sucks, but you don't have to really do that much of it as compared to some later bosses. So it's not bad. I like this one, I think, well enough. So, all right, let's do number 8. Colossus number 8. We got the Gecko of the Colosseum. That's what I call them. I like my little names here. I think they're decent. So okay, the Gecko of the Colosseum. Let's do PS3, John. This one was fun. The mechanic of having a multi-floored tower with a smaller boss that comes to you when it's provoked is a good balance, and that's why they accomplished in good balance of what they accomplished with the hiding bosses, so like the beard guy and all that, and an element of you using your bow, kind of like number 2, to knock it down off the wall. Having its weakness on its belly is a deceptive thing for a first time player, as you for go to climb him like the others and then get decimated by his gas bombs, which is a new element itself uh, that immediately takes a lot of health. So the player realizes the best option is to flee. On the second floor, the bow can be used, so naturally the player shoots it from the open spot, only to get gassed up there, adding a dangerous element of depth to this boss's attacks. To get a better shot, however, he climbs to you, and eventually the solution becomes clear. Hit him from a nearby window to distract him and make him climb there, and then, while he's distracted, shoot his legs to knock him off. Jumping down is a small hit to your health at times, but it's necessary as as he gets up faster than you'd think. Since he's a bit smaller, though, this is a reason. Since he's a bit smaller, this is reasonable. 2 stab points at his underbelly, and it's notable that you have to grip the underbelly to stab it. It really takes all the elements of 6, all the elements 6 tried. So that'd be I think the beard one. Beard one? Which one was number 6? Is this number 8 that we're on now? Okay, number 6. Number 6 was the beard minotaur of the giant tower or whatever. Takes those elements, tried to a new level. The hiding, the distraction, only it doesn't do anything with its bad climbing, but other bosses have done that much better anyway. All in all, this was a nice fight. The level of strategy and depth here may take this to my next favorite fight to 2 right now. So this is like at this point, this is my second favorite fight here. I was very high on this, I guess, in the PS3 version, which, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good one. Let me see. So, okay. Number 8. Let's do PS4. Okay, number 8. The Gecko of the Colossus. The Gecko of the Colosseum. I'm sorry. Getting this boss was a bit of a hassle. I couldn't find the entrance to the cave the cave that leads there. I kept circling around and eventually found it. Yeah, I spent like a good 40 minutes like circling around where it was, and then there's like this small entrance on the one side that I hadn't checked. So that was my bad. This is a good boss with a few flaws. I like the idea of knocking him off the wall, but getting him to your level reliably is not as easy as it could be. There's a lot of waiting with this boss, and that's the worst part. Other than that, the setting is good. When the boss is flipped, his weak spot is exposed, and getting to them in time is the real challenge. It's not always easy to traverse him when flipped either, but the most reliable method seems to be climbing up the tail. It's just all up to whether or not he's flipped anywhere near you, but other than that, good overall, 7.4 out of 10. And, with a little bit of hindsight, I think that this was also one of the better bosses, along with the electric eel, so far. I think I agree more with past me than future me, because there's a lot of depth to the fight with, like, the gas bombs and all that. I think future me just kind of had a little bit of trouble with it. Like I said, just a few of the things I mentioned there were like, him being flipped anywhere near you and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of waiting for him was a little bit of a hassle. But I think overall it's pretty good. I like this boss. So let's do number 9. This is the Turtle of the Geysers. This is a good one. I like this one. Let me see. Where is number 9? Okay, yeah, I should really space this out better. Okay, copied all this from Facebook, I think so. All right. Number 9, an elegant call. This is the Turtle of the Geysers. An elegant callback to boss fight number 2, but bigger, badder, and much more deadly. It has elements of the previous fights with luring enemies to the geyser. At this point, at that point, the fight becomes shoot its slightly exposed leg and sturdy to knock it onto its side and eventually climb the bottom onto the top shell once it's flipped over. In that light, it even mirrors that previous fight by flipping the mechanic that the underside is weak back in its head. So I think I was saying that it's kind of like the gecko fight where its underside is the weak, or whichever one that was. I think that was the gecko one. Atop it's a rocky and unstable sprint to the head, and it's pretty simple to take him out all in one shot. His really challenge. I think what I meant to say is the real challenge comes from segments. Luring segments. The luring segments. So you got to lure him to the geysers. That's what it is. As he becomes more agile than you think, being the biggest and baddest, most daunting Colossus yet. He can shoot an array of light bullets. I think they're like lightning bullets. I think that's what I was getting at. Lightning bullets down at you from afar, and if he's not near a geyser, and this can take you out pretty quick. You have the option to use aggro in this fight, so you can use him to dodge the bullets, but I mostly just rolled out of the way. This is probably my second or third favorite at the moment. I like his scale, his agile yet slow nature, and yet it was just a good boss fight in general. Also props to the fight for making a callback to the tense music from the Shadow of the Colossus epic theme from the second fight, which actually making it feel right, as it only plays when you have the upper hand and is not lazily added like in boss fight number 6, which I don't really agree with anymore. I think it felt just as fine in boss fight number 6. The Minotaur beard guy. So yep, the Turtle of the Geysers. This was a good boss fight. Good mechanics using the geysers to knock it over and shooting the exposed leg areas. The first time calling back to the previous boss that was similar, which was number 2. I like how even when you get to its fur, it's a big fake out because you think that that's the area where the weak spot will be, and it turns out to be higher. So yeah, so like you get to this fur, I think on the underside or something, you're like, oh, where's the weak spot? 'Cause that's where they always are, right? And it's like, no, you gotta like climb around to the top of it. Like on the side, there's little points where you can jump and then get to the top of it where the actual weak point is. The revelation of having to climb to its top area and then go for the head was a great one. And there's no real place to grab on top until you get to the head, so it's shaking and daring to get over there. The music follows the full epic theme with the turtle flipped on its side, so that's awesome. Overall, a very cool boss fight, 8.9 out of 10. I think I gave an 8.9 to that other one, right? I think that was 8.7. I don't remember. 8.8. Okay. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so that's an 8.9. So, yeah, this one's really good. This is, like, one of my favorites. Definitely, like, my second or third favorite, probably, overall, I would say. Definitely really good. It also calls back to the second boss fight, which is, like, probably my favorite one, which is cool. Otherwise, this is in the contender for best Colossi, I think, as well. So, all right, let's get to number 10. We got the Sand Eel. All right. Where is there? PS3. Wait, is this? Okay. Number 10, the Sand Eel. This This fight is a new take on number 7, which was the water eel, wherein the difference is it's a sandworm, so now you can't follow him underground. But what does that? But what does that? What? But what does this then leave us to presume? Nothing. The pattern is completely random. You have to hit its eyes when you feel like showing that when it feels like showing them, and you want to use aggro, and wants you to use aggro, which to their credit worked okay here. Then when it's blinded, you just wait for it to bash into any random wall and stab its point until it decides to go back down, forcing you to do it again. Waiting is the bane of... Oh my god. Oh my god. I quoted Ego Raptor here. Waiting is the bane of a player's existence. And so... that part. And so the random element... What does he say that about? Isn't that Ocarina of Time or whatever? He's like, waiting is the bane of the player's existence or whatever. God damn it. Alright, anyway. Sorry. That threw me off that I quoted Ego Raptor here. That's so funny. Oh my god. And so the random elements here as well make this fight needlessly more difficult. The idea is fine, but much like the semi-solid ground he glides through, the execution here isn't very intuitive. I literally only knew to shoot the eyes because of the voice. Oh, okay. So, one key thing to mention here, the voice of Dorman, is not his name or whatever, in the PS4 version, got super fucking annoying on, I think, the third Colossi or whatever, when he just kept telling me to hit the metal plate, and I'm like, I fucking know that I need to hit the metal plate, so I turned the voice off. So I didn't have the voice on the new version, by the way. So I just kind of winged it, or I used, for this fight in particular, I actually was talking to my friend at the time, and I'm just like, what do I do? And this is like his favorite game, and he's like, oh yeah, you just have to use aggro, and then like wait until his eyes come up, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I think that's what I'm getting at here with this PS3 review, is that it's not very intuitive that you know that you first of all need to use aggro, which is fine. That part's fine. But just like knowing that he's gonna come up at some point and like you can shoot his eyes, like that's kind of like whatever. There's not a lot of indication for that. And I guess Dorman tells you that. I don't know. Anyway, at least the fight mechanics here work, and the setup of denying your expectations of just grabbing on is fine, but it's rather cryptic after that about what you need to do. The cues aren't very clear, and waiting sucks. It's really not an offensively bad boss at the end of the day. They just give you nothing to work with. Which yeah, I agree that it's just kind of like they don't really give you any indication of what you're supposed to be doing here, especially when it's so close to the eel boss where you're just kind of thinking, oh, maybe I just need to grab him and like follow him or something. So, yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense. Alright, let's get to the sand eel on the PS4 Remake. So, this is number 10. This one is cool, but a little cryptic. He's basically a sand version of the water eel, but obviously you can't follow him under. The strategy is to ride aggro until he pops up, pops his head up, hit his eyes, and then he crashes into the wall. Then you could climb him and his weak point, which is pretty easy to find. This one is memorable. This one is memorable, but not all that stand out for any specific reason. Still good though. 7.2 out of 10. Fair. I think it's just kind of a lesser version of the water one, and it's a little bit more cryptic. It's probably one of the more cryptic bosses, like what am I supposed to do kind of thing, which is kind of bad, but you know that's fine. I mean, it works. You know, it's an okay one. So, all right, let's get to number 11. We got the Small Guardian. So okay, yeah, all right, the Small Guardian. So, number 11. This boss is the smallest yet, and he's not really that threatening, and instead he's just annoying. The last guy took you down in a few hits. Granted, he was huge, but still, it's very impossible to lose to this guy. That's not to say he's easy, though. Quite the opposite is true. At first, it's pretty clear once you find him that get the fire to scare him off the ledge. But then what? What advantage? What advantage did that give me? Even if it was upside down, the mark on it. Even if he was upside down, the mark is on his back. I I wouldn't know because by the time I got down there, he was up and rearing to go. This fucker is fast, and he rams, and if he rams you, you get knocked down and take a minimal hit. But getting knocked on your ass is horrible in the case that you have to mash the triangle button for a set of time to get up. He's already gonna knock you down again immediately. So basically, the whole thing about this boss is the worst part of it is if you're like even knocked down and you get up, he's probably gonna knock you down again and ram into you on the second half of this boss. I didn't really spend a lot of time talking about the first half of this boss, but I'll get to that in the next one. So remember waiting. Remember how waiting sucks? Well, it gets worse. You have if you too finagle. I don't know. If you finagle him and if you finagle him just right and get behind him at a certain angle, what angle is a complete mystery, and actually jump and grab onto his back. That's right. When he fell, the armor on his back shattered, so the fire only did that. So that's what the fire did, is like when he falls, he actually shatters the armor so you can get at the weak point, basically. That was the purpose of that. I didn't really realize that before in this review, I guess. You're treated to more waiting as he flings you around wildly, and your weight problems... Weight as in pounds now. Okay, weight problems of not being able to establish some ground to stab a thing that has a wind-up is so barely doable here. Happen about 4 times. Okay, fortune cookie, happen about 4 times. Happen about 4 times. Alright. This, if, what is it? If able man, there are always. My friend got a fortune cookie that said that once. If able man, there are always. Always what? That was it. Always, period. Okay. Alright, let me see. Marking all this waiting, as well as any stab point you make, totally luck based. The only thing that I like about this boss conceptually is that he's afraid of fire, which puts some real character into this creature as you see his fear for once rather than your own. It shows emotion other than rage for you, and it makes you feel kind of bad for hurting it. Hurting it. Yeah, for hurting it. Overall, this boss is a bit of a mess, but had potential somewhere, I'm sure. So yeah, the thing that's cool about this boss is that, like, for the first time, you're kind of like, oh, I'm hurting this innocent creature, and, like, man, that kind of sucks, right? Like, that's the whole part of the story is, like, these creatures are probably innocent. The whole story is, like, very interpretive, but I like to see these Colossi as kind of like, innocent creatures that you're going out to slay, doing this all for your girl. So you're doing it for a good intention, but is it really worth, the sacrifice of these pure and innocent creatures, 16 of them for your one girl? I mean, I don't know, so that's kind of the question there. This boss kind of raises that question, which is good. So I had a lot of trouble with it, obviously, the first one. But let's see what PS4 John thinks. Alright, the Small Guardian. Not as bad as I remember. I thought the setting was cool, and leading him off the edge with the fire was kind of heartbreaking, which is that character again. And I like that. I like that a lot. I think this is the Colossi you feel the most bad for. And now that they kind of fixed it a little better with this version, I think it's definitely stands out better. I still think he's a little hard to grab in part 2, but it's fine. He's also persistent, trying to bash into you from before you get the fire, so that's slightly annoying, but it's alright. There's not much to him, but overall he's okay. 6.7 out of 10. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, now that I remember this is kind of like the most emotional boss, like even just for like a small moment, like I think that this one probably is more like in the 7, you know, mid 7 range, somewhere in there, because I think that's kind of a unique aspect to this boss overall, having seen the other ones, and it only kind of gets like lesser from here. I mean, there are some good bosses from here, but this is where the game also really jumps the shark and puts some really bad bosses in here in a second. The next one in particular. So let me take a drink of water for this, because this is my least favorite one here coming up. Alright, so you guys remember that lake I was talking about earlier? I think that was in the Electric Eel one. Well, that lake actually serves a purpose, and it's to house the worst boss of the entire game. And I called him, in this review, the Lake Loser. So just let that, you know, waft over you. I called him the Lake Loser. I don't know how else to describe him. My friend said he's like a turtle or something. I don't give a shit. He's the Lake Loser to me. So, alright, I'll start with PS3. This is, what, number 12? Alright. This boss was the single most tedious boss so far, and hopefully for the entire game. Probably true, but we'll get there with the final boss. We'll see. This is because even once you've snuck onto his back and hang out there, it takes upward of possibly 10 minutes, question mark. I don't know specifically how long. Very, very long, drawn out, sluggish, horrible amount of time. It gets anywhere near until it gets anywhere near a building top, of which there are 4 to start. It's agonizing how long you have to wait for this thing. And about a half hour into the fight, I assume, as I have no concept of time while playing, I may have figured out that you can steer it lazily by how you grip the grass on the head. But it was unresponsive at times, so maybe it was just delusional by that point. Okay, so clearly I didn't know how this boss worked back then. Maybe this is accurate? I don't know. You know, Nick, tell me, is this how this works in the PS3 version? It's been a while since I played this. It's been some amount of years, but do you grip the grass, or was I being an idiot and there actually still was the teeth thing on his heads where you have to hit those with your sword to get him to go? Because that's how you actually have to do it. You just hit these things and it goes in the direction. It's still bad, by the way. It's still bad, even when you figure out that you have to direct it, which you get no indication for. It's a little bit clearer in the PS4 version, but even when you know that, it still steers badly and stuff. It's just really not very good. But I guess in this version, I was just grabbing the grass and thought that was steering him. So I bet that was even worse. Okay, and when you finally get on top of a building, but be sure not to grab the clearly patterned legs that are never used for anything else in this game, and look like they may lead to the mark, as they're emphasized, or they're the emphasized part, which generally by this game's logic is where you climb, as there's a giant misdirector too. So I grabbed some kind of legs or something that like you weren't supposed to grab, so I guess that was infuriating. No, instead grab the tuft of grass on his chest. Oh, okay. So what happens is when you get on top of the building, you hide behind this little pillar, and then he'll like, boom, boom, he'll like put his legs up there. So what I thought you must have had to do was grab the legs, for some reason. I don't know where I thought that was going to take me, because like that would just take me back to the head, which I was already at. So, I don't know. I'm doing an eclipse on this one. You know. Let's see. So, now I know what what you're thinking. John, just use the sword to check out where the snap point is. That's my commentary voice. But no, that's not that's not what any sane person would do because he's firing at you constantly. Yeah, that's true. So he's firing these lightning bolts, kind of like the turtle boss before. Someone I called him the turtle or something. The one in the desert with the geysers, the geyser turtle. That's what I called him. So he's firing the lightning bolts kind of like that, and that was a real. I'll get to that in the PS4 one, but that was really annoying too. So, you can't really just like hold up your sword to see where the stab point is because he's firing these lightning bolts at you constantly. So, and again, once you are finally able to hit him after all the bullshit, about 15 to 20 minutes of solid waiting, which was on my part really, but um, I'm not gonna defend this boss because it's still bad, but that was my fault for not knowing the thing. But also it's very cryptic to know that. So I mean it's very much more clear in the PS4 version that that's what you're supposed to do. So because it like actually the teeth thing actually like glow and stuff. I just thought it was part of the boss. I don't know. 15 minutes. You get in one or two good stabs, and then he throws you off regardless of the time, and it's not timed, and it's segmented to make you wait at least twice, if not 3 times this round. Yeah, so there's a lot of waiting. This fight took an eternity, and to me, that's a terrible game design. Games are about fun, and ones like this I get are about the experience of fighting these enormous colossi, and I love that. I love those parts, but bosses like this are tedious padding that could have been much tighter. So yeah, and I'll probably say this in the review at some point, and I think I said it in my second part, in the PS4 version. But originally in this game, there was meant to be, I've heard as many as 48 colossi, but then that was scaled back pretty quickly, and they realized the limitations of the system. So then there was like 36 at one point, and then there was like maybe 24. I think was the final number that they wanted to put in 24 colossi, or whatever. And there's a lot of evidence in the game to kind of support that. And there's even concepts in the game of like the last, what would it be, like 8 of them that you can't fight or whatever. So there was like a spider and stuff, like a bunch of cool sounding boss fights. So my point is, they chose to keep this really bad Lake Guardian guy in here. And they didn't just like build a spider one or something, like the spider one. I mean, we've done enough with the water so far. There's 3 bosses on the water as far as I can think of. Maybe even another one that I'm just not thinking of. But, like, I would have liked to have seen the spider. I would have liked to have seen any of the other, scrapped Colossi bosses. They should just replace this place with that, is what I'm trying to get at. So, alright, let's see. Again, maybe I'm an idiot, but there's an easier solution. Yeah, I mean, there is. Yeah. And I'm playing this game blind, without any help, because I want the experience of feeling how horrible or brilliant I think the designs are in these scenarios, along with getting to the solution myself. Yeah, just playing the game blind. I didn't look up anything. I maybe looked up this one finally, because I just, whatever. But, I was trying to get the experience of the game. It's like, the game doesn't make this very clear as this is what you're supposed to do. So, there's simply no reason to make a player wait this long, a minute or so, for the scenario to change, or for the player to see the opening is fine, but this crosses a fine line. If I'm not attacking or doing anything but holding on that entire time, then don't waste my time. The idea was fine, but the implementation of several minutes of waiting is an atrocious gaming sin. And that's it. That's where I ended it. Okay, cool. Done. Alright, so let's get to a more structured version of that review then. Because I keep clicking on the internet. Why do I keep doing that? Alright. So we've got Colossi number 12, the Lake Loser. This is without a doubt the worst Colossi. There's not as much waiting as I thought, but there is still a lot of waiting. So, to start out, swimming to the platform is very tedious. But even when in the fight, it's so unclear of what to do. He instantly has you in a chokehold by firing his magic lightning at you wherever you're trapped. The lower parts of each island have no purpose, so there's another level of design that's a dud. So yeah, basically there's lower areas to these higher areas that I was talking about in the last part of the review, which serve no purpose as far as I'm concerned. So they're just there to waste your time and like kind of misdirect you, which is kind of bad. So when you finally figure out, when you finally figure out to tediously swim around to his backside, a task which is made excruciating by him often following you and turning to make it impossible to reach, you'll find there's a way onto his back. But that's not enough. Then you need to figure out that you can control the Colossi, a thing that's never even been remotely a thing before, with these giant teeth that he has on his head crown. So yeah, there's this. It doesn't make any sense. This hasn't been a thing before, which is fine. You can introduce a mechanic to a game, but this is Colossi number 12. Maybe if another one had it to where, let's say there was one of those like small guardian guys, right? Because there is another one, and you were on his back, and maybe you had to like kind of steer him towards a wall or something. Like that would have been a good setup for this kind of boss, and I wouldn't be as pissed then about this kind of boss. But they didn't do that, so this is bad. All right. And turning to make it impossible to reach, you'll find there's a way onto his back. Oh, no, I already read that part. Let's see. Giant teeth crown. The directions and controls barely do as you want them to, which makes the whole thing into another level of pain. So even when you control him, he just goes like weirdly in the direction. He kind of just goes at like increments of that direction that you're trying to get him to go. So it's a big pain in the ass. Then you have to know to jump onto the top of the pillar and hide behind the thing in the center and make sure he knows that you're up there. And then finally, you have to have him raise himself to expose his belly weak spot. And as though all that wasn't enough, you have to know to jump from the very edge of this plank platform, and not just to jump from anywhere, otherwise you fall and have to start all over. So on top of this pillar, there's these little platforms that like kind of jut out towards him, and like from the distance it kind of just looks like you can maybe just jump if you're kind of near him, just from anywhere to get to him, but you have to be at the very edge of this plank to even be able to get to his thing. The only reason I'm so pissed about it is I jumped from, where it looked like I could probably get to him, and I fell and had to do the whole thing again. So it's just all this tedium all over again. So it's just like, ugh, it's just like, oh my god, fuck this. But, so it's not very well telegraphed where you're kind of supposed to go. Let me see. In fact, at any point in this giant list of cryptic things that need doing, if you fall, you have to tediously swim around him and go from the beginning. Of course, once you've landed a few blows, he arbitrarily shakes you off anyways, and you'll have to redo that again. So basically, when you're in the water, you can't just like climb him anywhere. You have to like climb him from the back. That's kind of the whole thing. So it's just tedious to swim around him, especially like when he's spinning. He spins around to like follow you and stuff. So he like has to not know that you're even there. So it's just really bad. So yeah. So even if you've played perfect to this. Even if you play perfect, the game just punishes you with bullshit. So yeah, so he arbitrarily shakes you off, and this is the problem with that. Like most guys could do this, but like there's usually a way to like circumvent this or whatever. But the problem with this, like arbitrarily them shaking you off and you having to climb them again, is if a player is playing perfectly to that point, there's no reason they should be punished for being shaked off or whatever, just so they have to do it again. I think that, maybe there could be like lose all of your progress. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like there should be maybe an arbitrary like checkpoint kind of on the Colossi or something. I don't know. That would just be nicer, but especially with one like this. So like what if he shook you off and he like shook you off back to a pillar top or something? Like, that'd be reasonable, right? No, he shakes you out back to the water and you have to do the whole thing again. You know, like, that's, yeah, no. This is a train like wreck of a Colossus. Colossus. I like it. That's the new. I put a U on the end instead of an I for some reason. Colossus. Colossus. Yeah. It pains me that nearly 20 of the other Colossi concepts went unused in development, and we got this one, and they kept that in the final product. This is so bad it hurts. It spits on an otherwise pretty great experience of a game with the most agonizingly trite foe. What the fuck were they thinking? 1 out of 10. Before this, I have not given this any of these guys less than 6.7, I think was the lowest one. This one is a 1 out of 10. I don't even know why I gave it a 1, but whatever. It's pretty bad. It's like the worst one. I'm glad we can move on from that, because that was a long struggle, but it really is just the worst Colossi. So, alright, we got number 13, the Flying Sand Snake. Flying Sand Snake. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Alright, let's go to this one. This boss is a combination of 5 and 10, though it's works significantly better in the more open environment, as it gives more room to move freely on aggro and then get distracted. Wait. Rather than get distracted by objects and pillars through notable. Though notable, there is a bit of that. Yeah, okay. The only other annoyances here are that the third round, where the bags become hard to hit due to flying higher, and the fact is that it takes it takes to go underground to knock you off, which is the point, as it becomes an obvious intentional design choice. So it's a rather moot point. So yeah, he goes underground at some point to like kind of arbitrarily shake you off. You know, it's that thing again, but whatever, it's fine. The weakness, the bags beneath it are filled with air, and is clear and concise. There's no confusion. And the climb point is obvious on its wings when they start to drag, catching up. So it's good conveyance, to steal another Ecoraptor term. Like, you know, when the wings drag, it's like, oh, okay, I have to climb the wings. It's not like whatever that one was where it wasn't very clear. The sand eel, I believe it was, where it's not very clear what you have to do. This one's pretty clear what you have to do. There's these big inflated bags underneath of it. You shoot the bags. It falls once you shoot all 3, and then you get on its wings, and you like figure it out from that, you know, kind of thing, which is cool. It's a good one. Catching up to it with aggro can be a challenge, but oftentimes it's easier to find its flight pattern as a sharp turn and cut him off. Also, the use of aggro and the bow here is well implemented. The stab point behind, or often hidden behind the flaps, and when it's flying, the wind is pushing against them, so that's a nice touch. It's also cool that you find this boss by running over an irregular structure at which you pass it hope of collectibles. I think I meant that there's collectibles along the way or something. I don't know. This rewards a player for being in an explorative mindset, such as myself, as every time I see a structure, the game has programmed me to stop and find a white-tailed lizard. Overall, it's a nice boss. Coming off of 12, coming off of 12, and it's very disheartening experience. It's great to see the game pick up again. Yeah, so this is a good boss, basically. Especially after number 12. Let's see. Number 13. Couldn't they have made the other guy number 13, and then it would have been like, you know, he'd be the unlucky Colossi or something, you know? That way at least we'd have an excuse for why he was so bad. Anyway, the Flying Sand Snake. This is a pretty cool boss coming off of the worst one ever. I like the concept of riding aggro in such a dynamic way, and having to take out these windbags on the creature's underbelly. Then it lasers towards the ground, and you have to time the jump off of aggro to reach its fin wings as they drag across the sand desert. Then the climbing begins. He's super long with 3 weak spots. His three weak spots under his terry folds, if you get that reference, which close and open depending on which direction he's flying. It was like 3 in the morning when I was writing this, so I've just been listening to the overly animated Rick and Morty podcast, so working that day. So yeah, his terry folds. It's a bit it's a bit tedious to have to out take them out. Wait, take one out at a time and then pin him down again. But here the fight is so fun and the punishment isn't so steep. If you fall off, you're less likely to do since there's a lot of good areas to grab onto. The punishment isn't steep if you fall off, which, you're not as likely to do because there's a lot of good areas to grab onto is what I was trying to say. Taking this one down feels satisfying and not annoying, which is great. The music is on point too and helps capture the epic nature of the fight. Very cool overall. 9.2 out of 10. So very good boss fight. This is actually, I think, my friend's favorite boss fight. And this is his favorite game, so that would be pretty good. But anyway, it's one of them at least, if not one or first or second or something like that. Anyway, all right. So we got number 14. This is the Puzzle Bowl, I called it. It's kind of like the Small Guardian, except it's more, there's like a puzzle aspect to it. So I like this boss, but figuring out what to do initially gave me some trouble. The pattern of what you have to do, getting it to knock down the towers, isn't entirely intuitive. So the first few rounds, the player will be backed into a corner, getting hit, and not being able to escape until you die. However, the trenches are nice to back the enemy off, and once you figure it out, no thanks to the cryptic hint telling you to climb the tower, which is inconceivable at first, it's pretty much a breeze. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense until the final tower falls over, and I think that the use of the environments to defeat him is awesome. The presentation of these objects aren't too clear at first. After you take a ton of time to get through that by always hitting with the bow the second time, which is stupid because it already knows that you're up there, and that all that's left to do is to hit the exposed tab after it knocks down the fallen pillar. Okay, so yeah, basically it's kind of stupid that you have to keep leading it on, with your bow or whatever, I think is what I'm trying to say here. All in all, this is what 11 should have been, and it's almost questionable that the other 16 scrapped Colossi, that they thought 11 and 12 were the best choices. But hey, this was an alright boss, and at least there's nothing very bad about it once you know what you're doing. 11 and 12. What was 11? Isn't 12 the bad one? What's 11? Oh, okay. I was very less high on the Small Guardian guy before, so yeah. 11 and 12. Okay, whatever. Alright, so yeah. Okay, number 14, the Puzzle Bowl. This is a variation on number 12. It's almost exactly the same enemy, though how you go about defeating it is pretty different. This is more of an environmental boss where the level design is put to play. He rams into the towers so you can progress, a nice concept, but it's not that interesting beyond that, especially when you don't understand why you're doing this until the very end. That was the big problem, is like it's not very clear why you're getting all these towers knocked down until the very end. So he gets smashed by a platform and the armor shatters, leaving his weak spot exposed. Then the problem is the same as number 12, where when you jump on his back you have to wait for him to calm down, although overall he seems less rambunctious here. And overall a decent boss, but not anything too special. 6.9 out of 10. Yeah, it's an okay boss. Looking back, I think the Small Guardian is probably better overall. So just because of like the emotional aspect or whatever, it's actually kind of clear what you're doing there. So yeah, I'd probably put that one above this one at this point. All right. Okay, we got number 15. We got I call them the Valley Giants. This is the one where you're between the two things in this giant valley, and there's like these two structures where you have to get him to let you kind of climb up there and whatnot, and then take him down. Okay, let's see what I thought in the old review. This boss is very tedious. He's cool, yes, and very functional in most regards. At first, it was even a lot of mechanics of previous bosses, and the whole lifting the panel thing with his foot and hitting a path forward is fine, but then you fall. But then if you fall at any point, all these steps become incredibly tedious after a while. So doing everything, having him hit the thing, and then you having to wait for him so you can get back up is kind of tedious, is what I'm saying. Which I guess I kind of agree with, but it's really not that bad. Not only that, but you're waiting for him to slowly trudge over to you, lift the panel, and get back up onto the bridge. That currently works. He seems to be partial to certain ones regarding of how many hits you've gotten. I don't know what that means. Is incredibly tedious. He shakes around a lot too once you finally jump on him, making sure he's close enough. Make sure he's close enough or you'll have to do it all over again and reach his head. But it's a lot better than number 11, who never stops shaking. Oh, the Small Guardian again. Okay. I'm really railing into Small Guardian here, which, he's not that bad. He's Tiny Guardian! Anyway, at least this boss gives you an occasional chance. The second part is very tricky and requires a lot more tedium to accomplish unless you're a master. Basically, repeat everything above, then stab a point on his arm to make him drop his weapon. Alright, then continue the trek down to his palm. At this point, you're very close to the ground, so make one mistake and there's no coming back. You start from the ground again and need to go all the way back up and around. If you manage to grab his furry palm, stabbing it isn't too hard, and that's it. I don't really hate this boss, but the gimmick utterly ruins any chance this boss had to shine. The boss and the climbing destroy all sense of hype, and the giant penultimate hype about this giant penultimate beast. Its concept is good, but the punishment is just too steep. Which I kind of agree with still. I think that the punishment is pretty steep, but overall I'm much higher on this boss now, I think, than I was before. I actually like it a lot more, especially since we're going to get into the final one here in a minute, which, it's pretty bad. So, okay, let's go over to the Valley Giant. We got Colossus number 15. This one is pretty complex. There's a lot of layers to this fight. First off, he's pretty well hidden away in a remote corner of the desert. Once there, he climbs up out of this valley, emphasizing the stature and his towering nature. The gimmick is to get to a high area and jump onto him. Getting there is a gauntlet, raising and destroying platforms with his might. Both bridges need to be destroyed too for some reason, and once they are, you can bounce from them to his head. This is often difficult to judge whether or not you will fall and have to start over again, since the massive scale isn't easy to gauge whether or not you're close enough. The main weak spot is on his head, which is 90% of the health, which takes out 90% of the health bar, basically. The second spot on his arm knocks off the sword, and on the ground you can... Oh... Okay, so in the last boss fight, I didn't know this, but when you're on the ground, you can coax him into pounding his fist, and then that'll reveal the stab point. So I must have not known that before, so somehow I must have climbed from the shoulder down to the hand before, which would have been really a lot harder. So, but I did know that this time, that you can coax him by pounding his hand, and he'll reveal the stab point. So that's a lot easier. So you don't have to start all the way over again when you're on the ground. So I think that relieves a lot of tedium from the boss, definitely. Let me see. So, yeah. Which reveals the final stab point on his palm. So the atmosphere and music are pretty good. The boss stands out but isn't amazing by any means. Just pretty cool. 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I like this boss. I think he's pretty decent. He's definitely mid to high tier kind of boss in this game. So yeah, cool. All right, and then this is great. I love what I got it named. Colossi number 16, the final tower fucker. That's what I called him. The final tower fucker. Let's see how high I was on him in the original. I don't think I was very high on him in the original. So let's see what the concept is here. The final Colossus, and the mood is set dim from the start. Rain starts immediately, and the music is a somber piece. Piece for the events that unfold moments before. Yeah, aggro like dies, quote unquote, like moments before this. He like sacrifices himself for you, which is like kind of cool. So you're kind of like you're in this funk mood, when you're going into the fight. That's what I'm saying. The rain starts emphasizing this, and all that, and then you go into this like kind of pissed off at the tower, like you just want to kill him and all that. As you approach what is the largest colossi yet, and can only be described as a giant tower creature, the best scene of scale wafts over you for all of a cutscene, and then the onslaught of energy shots begins. This boss's only attack fires down at you. Okay, yeah, so this is his guy's like only attack other than shaking you off, which is the really annoying part. The first third of the fight is simply getting to him, but with that knockdown function and mashing to get up being the really challenging part. There are barriers set up along the way that allow you to take cover, and rolling between them at just the right time, which leads to the next tunnel. So, okay. Can you roll in the PS4 version? Oh my god, I don't think I ever rolled in the PS4 version. Yeah, because that was a lot harder on the PS4 version, because I guess I didn't realize you could roll? I don't know if that would have really helped, but, okay. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, so... A few more of these. The last one is a bit of a struggle, and you'll make it to the base. At this point, the enemy stops attacking you, and all you have to do is climb. During the second part, the climbing section, falling will result in some frustration, but very minimal at this time. This time the boss isn't what is dictating your forward progress like 15 and so many tedious times before. Rather, you are in control, thus your punishments are severe yet not tedious, which is a good thing and is good game design. I can see that. I like my reasoning here, but also, no, it is very tedious to reclimb this thing. So I don't think that's good game design at all. But what were they going to do also, because they had to make it the biggest one, right? So you have to reclimb it. Well, checkpoints, like I was talking about. Make some checkpoints, goddammit. That would be fine if you didn't have the possibility to fall all the way back down to the base. Checkpoints would be fine. And I think that would have helped this boss a lot, actually. Or some checkpoints, That would have been really good, actually. This boss would be so good if they just had some fucking checkpoints. I think. I mean, that's it. I fixed the boss for you guys. Also, hey, maybe fix the fur mechanics like you did in the fucking, PS4 one or whatever. I haven't even talked about that yet, so I mean, I don't know if that really affected me here. Let's see. So I like the game design of this. I think this is a good boss so far, and I like how I'm kind of laying this out here. Like, okay, the first part is kind of this like trek to him, and there's this is the part where he's attacking you. The second part is really building on the secondary mechanic, or like one of the main mechanics, but it's another really main mechanic. So like the first part is like the action segment. The second part is like the climbing segment. Like that's cool. Like, this boss is kind of laid out in a nice way. Like that is good game design, but I mean, there's some problems, so hopefully we'll get into that. Eventually, at its middle, you'll reach a stab point on its back, which which does a set amount of damage, minimal damage, and is rather used to lure his hand to the back so you can grab it. Once it's swung back around, then the arm climbing isn't too hard once you've got a clear angle at which to get, but waiting for this can be a bit agonizing as he twists his hand constantly. Yeah, that's the stupid part. Once you've made it mid-arm, I like that wording there. A second minimal damage stab point is there. The opposite arm will swing over, and once it's stabbed, leading, you cannot climb thanks to energy pulses surround. Oh, okay. So there's like these fire things that are like, I guess in that game looks more like energy pulses. I don't know how I would have described it, but yeah, whatever. Surrounding it, it can make it tricky to jump to the chest plate. Wait, the chest plate in front of his face. Then you've made it to the final part. All that's due to climb the small path to the head and stab it until he's gone. He's a bit shaky and unsure that there's obvious intervals by which to stab. While climbing, I thought to myself, man, this is a fitting conclusion to all the mechanics. The climbing, the bits of platforming, with the hands locating at the stab points, it's all the natural progression and the perfect refinement of nearly all the problems and mechanics from the other fights. And it's true. The boss is easy. The boss is easy? What? This boss is easy! It is only hard when you fall or fail to jump a section. Well, yeah, that's the hard part. Wow, I was super high on it back then. This is actually convincing me this is maybe just a good boss. Admittedly, it will happen on a few occasions thanks to a few minor flaws in this game, such as semi-awkward jumps, yeah, at times, or not truly meaning to jump as far as you did. But hey, Uncharted had some problems like this too. Uh-oh, I lost my place. Uncharted. Oh boy. Sorry. Semi-awkward. Uncharted had some of these problems, and and this was a lot earlier than that too. So, oh yeah, this game came out before that, is what I'm trying to say. Given that this was namely on only a few occasions, it was truly my fault. This fight was a good one, referring to it and refining the mechanics for the previous fights and put together for the players one last test. Okay, and then I get into just some final thoughts. So very, very high on this boss in this part, and I disagree very heavily with myself there, but I also am very convinced by my words there that this is actually a very well designed boss, but like, man, wow. I was very convincing there for myself anyway. Maybe not to you guys, but let's just read this, and then I want to give some thoughts on this. This guy sucks so hard. The final tower fucker, Colossus number 16. This guy sucks so hard. Getting there isn't bad. Aggro nearly dying is a heart-wrenching experience. The boss itself starts out as a series of tunnels behind blocking, avoiding the lightning fire that is broken. The lightning fire is broken and knocks you back way too far. It is thus super annoying. Yeah, I agree with that. Even once you make it to the guy, the tedium has only just begun. Climbing the midsection is good, maybe the first time. It's a pretty okay environmental climb that works for the level design. The simplicity, though, is its biggest downfall, given the average player is going to fall and then start this all over again. It's as bad, if not worse, than the swimming. In the bad swimming Colossus, number 12, that would be. In terms, number 12, what was it? The lake loser, as I called him. Colossus in terms of pure boringness. The rest is a train wreck of jumping to the weak points and climbing the hands and jumping to the other hands, all while being shaken off. Yeah, that was the real challenge. I don't know if that was just the PS4 version, but he shakes a lot more. And you fall off a lot. If that doesn't get you, if that doesn't get you, the awkward directional controls of climbing the hand while they are moving will. The game came so close to redeeming all of its awkward fur climbing in the previous remake, and it just shat the bed at the end on this one. To top it all off, it's pretty bullshit that you have to know to stab the second hand, to stabilize it, to shoot the arrow at the shoulder. Now, I want to know, in this version, do you have to do that? Because I didn't even mention that in this one. And if I had to figure that out, or if I didn't use that at all, I was a trooper in this game. And I even still gave it high marks in this game, which is amazing to me, because that was the hardest part for me to figure out, that, oh, you have to stab the second hand so that you get a stable hand so you can shoot at this shoulder point so that he'll, reach himself over to the shoulder so you can get to the head. That was the most frustrating part, I think, this one. I fell so many times at this part, it's not even funny. And of course, the head is the ultimate weak spot. It won't barely ever let you get a clear stab due to shaking. It's a fucking nightmare overall. It's frustrating and a shitty conclusion to an otherwise pretty great game. 1.5 out of 10. Now, wow. So, a very different take between both of these on this boss. And it's pretty astounding, actually. I thinking about it now, from the level design and the kind of the perfect mechanical stuff, being the culmination of all the mechanics and all that, I think the boss is actually pretty good in that regard. But just like, my argument here is pretty valid too, because it's not as good if you think, because of the control of this one, and like climbing the hand and stuff is really awkward. But if you think about it conceptually, it's a really great fight overall. Because it is a culmination of sort of all of the tropes and the sort of things of this game and whatnot. And that's cool. But at the same time, in the remake, and maybe in this version too, climbing around the guy and climbing on his hand and stuff, especially while you have a low stamina bar, is kind of a nightmare. But wow, it's very different takes here. I think I'm somewhere in the middle at the end, probably more high on the boss. I mean, playing the boss maybe isn't great, but the idea and the concept of the boss really shines through. The experience of the boss isn't good, because that's the gameplay really at this point. But the experience of the level design and the thought behind the boss is a good experience. So it's a very mixed boss. The gameplay is kind of bad at times and kind of good at times, but more bad than anything, because falling off is a really pain. But like I said, in this version, I don't know. I guess that was more my fault than anything, for the reasons stated before. So I don't know. I mean, I really kind of still think it's maybe just kind of a middle tier boss because of what I played in this version. But I don't know. I was really high on it in this version. I remember it taking me a long time in this version, but I feel like I must have been frustrated too. But I ended up beating it in the end. So I just find it very interesting that I was very, forgiving on this one. Maybe because I didn't want to offend people or something, but I think there's a valid point to be made with this is good level design and a good final boss overall. It's just the fact that the mechanics and the climbing and the awkwardness of the climbing around on his fur and all that is weird. Which, in this game, they basically fixed at every regard except for this fight. If they had just made it a little bit better, I think it might have been on the par of my thoughts of it when I played it the first time. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a very mixed boss. But yeah. So anyway, let's kind of get to the final thoughts. So yeah, I don't know if it deserves a 1.5 out of 10. It's probably somewhere in the 7 range or something. I don't know. I'm a little higher on it now because it's just thinking about like what makes the boss cool. But like at the time, I was very low on it. Obviously, I didn't really enjoy it. So all right. So let's start with the final thoughts of the original review, and then we'll get to the final thoughts of the other one. All right. So, just as a final note, I want to mention that the game's aesthetic presentation, once more as a world and graphics are very beautiful, and all the various areas feel very distinct. It's almost a big, expansive open world. You can explore at your leisure. In between bosses, the shrines and the trees were always exciting as a reward for seeking them out. Some would say it's barren, but the immersive quality is sort of the point. Most of the Colossi also look very unique. The music, the music and the use, hold on, the music and the use, in its use during most boss fights, and how it generally shifted when you were almost on the weak point, was a brilliant touch. Also, the piercing stab, that was a great sound effect to complement the very physical stab, which the player really feels. In the overworld, music is not very abundant. It's nearly non-existent, which is fine, and it adds to the ambience of the world. The story isn't much of one at all. It's mostly left to interpretation. Aside from wanting to resurrect your girl by killing 16 bosses, not much else is established except for at the end there's a little more to make things even more confusing. Certain moments can touch unsuspecting gamers, but the lack of emphasis on it helps immerse the player so they can make their own loose context, much like Zelda 1 on the NES. I did think that's a good comparison. This game is more of an experiential game, crossed with something like Zelda 1, where you make your own fun in the overworld and that kind of thing by searching out stuff. Alright, if it wasn't completely obvious at points, it's it's the gameplay and the mechanics where the game shines ultimately. The puzzle-like bosses, where you need to use all pre-established notions, sometimes even bullshit that's unclear to make it through. Overall, 11/16 are... Wait. Overall, 11 of the 16 are good to excellent, in my opinion, only leaving 5 that I really didn't care for, mostly due to those fights being extremely slow. All in all, it was a good experience. This game is I don't know why I put 2 is's there. It's certainly a very unique one, and for the most part is excellent. While the bosses are slow, some bosses are slow, the rest are unique and interesting tests of different game design elements. Hell, even the failure often had some decent ideas behind it that were just poorly executed. I would think that'd be the last boss. Would be the most standout example of that. Decent, really, really good ideas, poorly executed in a lot of ways. I think the sparingly used music is awesome, as well as the world feels vibrant, dense, like a place you just love to explore. Undeniably, Shadow of the Colossus is a true classic, and it stands well in its spotlight. Despite the minor and major flaws in the combat, I really enjoyed myself for the most part. My final rating for this game is an 8.6 out of 10. And then I put a period and an I is there for some reason. I don't know why, but okay. So yeah, I overall enjoyed it the first time. I think that the first time was probably... Oh, wow. Shit. It's so hard to say because it's like there was a lot that they fixed in the PS4 one. The first experience on the PS3 collection, while it had its problems, was probably maybe the better experience, just because the first time you experience the game is like maybe better, and maybe that's why I was a little bit higher on the final boss and that kind of thing. So yeah, that takes care of the PS3 version. Would I give it an 8.7, right, or something? 8.6, right? Okay. And then PS4 version, much shorter final thoughts here. Very similar final thoughts though. Shadow of the Colossus is an interesting game. On one hand, there's almost half the bosses that are pretty great and serve as a cool, unique challenge. On the other hand, there's the bottom feeders of the 16 that kind of show up near the end to kill the good hype the game builds in its first 2/3. It's certainly a unique experience with solid music, atmosphere, and a simple premise, but at times it's weighed down by some puzzling kinks that really ought to have been ironed out 2 remakes later. To be fair, they did improve 90% of the troublesome areas before, but this only makes the little they didn't improve all the more jarring. I still found myself enjoying the game overall, and it's definitely the definitive version to play, the PS4 one that is. I give Shadow of the Colossus on PS4 an 8.4 out of 10. So yeah, I mean, the PS4 version is pretty much the definitive version, I would say. I don't think that the final boss was really changed at all. Maybe, and that's kind of the problem, is that it wasn't changed at all. But they did make a lot of really good, decent changes to this game. Like I was saying, a lot of the mechanical stuff and just kind of climbing a lot of the fur is a lot easier and it's a lot more intuitive and just light, slight not slice of life. What is it called? Life. Not slice of life, but quality of life. Quality of life. That's it. Quality of life gameplay improvements they made for the PS4 one. It looks nicer and that kind of stuff. Overall, it's probably just the better version of the game. But yeah, so play this one, I guess, over the PS3 one, or you can play the PS3 one too. I don't know. Either version is probably decent enough, but there's just some kinks in the PS3 one that I feel like they kind of worked out mechanically in the PS4 one, which is really nice, and it actually makes the game better. But like playing it again, some of the flaws I guess became more apparent because I didn't know. I knew more what I was doing, but I didn't at the same time. Like, it'd been a while since I played it, so a lot of the stuff kind of, like the final boss, little things eluded me. It's almost more frustrating when you sort of know what you're doing, but you, like, don't remember the exact details of what you're supposed to be doing. So, but I still really had a good time mostly with the game. As I was saying here, the first 2/3 was more high for me than the last part. But I did really end up liking the small guardian more than I did before. Tiny guardian, the tiny guardian. Yeah. From before, and I like the little emotional aspect to that. And he wasn't as bad, so it was a nice little recontextualization of the experience of Shadow of the Colossus for me. But I just don't know how. For me, anyway, I know a lot of people, they can play this game kind of like I play Metal Gear Solid, where that's my one of my favorite games, or I can play Tomba anytime and just pick it up and just have a great time with it. I don't think Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games that I can do that with. I think Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games where I can play it every, maybe maybe like every 10 years or something, and I might enjoy it more for having had that gap of time or something. It's not like a Persona 4 where I can just play it and just love it each time over. So, but, it's still a good game. I mean, it still holds up on replay. It's just some of the frustrating things are still frustrating. So, I mean, there's that. But I don't know if that's the game's fault or my, inability to remember things and, certain things of how to do things and stuff. But there were definitely a few mechanical flaws that kind of dragged down the experience a little bit. But they're very minor in this version, though, which is nice. They're mostly in the PS3 version, which they ironed out a lot of them outside of maybe the final boss, like I was saying. So, but yeah, overall, pretty great game. So I think that it's good. Yeah, it's a good game. It's a good game. So yeah, play this. Play Eco. Eco's really good. I gotta get to the last Guardian that's sitting over there. I know. I do want to get to a few games before then, so I'll play Shadow of the Colossus. I played Shadow of the Colossus. Finally got that done. I've been teasing it since the Eco video or the Yu-Gi-Oh one came after that. So maybe the one before was the one before that. I don't remember. I've been teasing it for a while, so I finally got that done. I think I'm probably gonna do Spyro next, maybe Spyro 3, or maybe Wind Waker HD. That's another one I want to begin getting to for a while, but I kind of want to sit down with this and actually experience it, because the last time I played the Wind Waker, it was on a screen literally this big, maybe like like a small. It was one of those portable DVD players, because that was the only TV I used to have in my room. So I don't think the Wind Waker is very well served with that mindset. But also, a lot of people like this one. A lot of people like Twilight Princess. But the thing about it is that like I didn't even really like. I think Twilight Princess is an okay game. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this could be its own whole other video. But that's kind of how I felt about the Wind Waker too. So, I'm looking forward to going back to it. So, but for Shadow of the Colossus, good game. Go play it. Get the PS4 remake. It's probably pretty cheap by now. It's probably less than $20. It's worth that. Give it a shot. It doesn't take that long to complete. Maybe like 10 hours or so. So that's nice, especially when I'm really busy now working and stuff. So play it. It's good. This has been JZNES saying keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews, underrated games, and I'll see you in the next one. JZ out. Uh-oh. That happens every